Australia's relationship with Israel has reached what many observers call its lowest point in decades. This week, diplomatic fallout triggers by visa cancellation, Palestinian state recognition, and unprecedented public criticism between leaders reveals fundamentally tension extended far beyond traditional diplomatic disagreement. This isn't merely about hurt feelings or political theater. At stake are strategic partnership, domestic social cohesion, and Australia's broader approach to Middle Eastern diplomacy in an increasing polarized global environment. The immediate triggers was Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke's decision to cancel Israel Knesset's member Simcha Rothman visa, citing inflammatory comments about Palestinian children. Israel retaliated by revoking visa for Australian diplomatic representatives. Then came Prime Minister Netanyahu, unprecedented public attack on Anthony Albanese as a weak leader who has abandoned Australian Jewish community. This escalation didn't occur in isolation. Australia's recent recognition of Palestinian statehood, joining 147 nations globally, represented a calculated strategic shift. The Albanese government's position recognized now preserved the two-state solution framework, Australia's bipartisan policy since 1947, by preventing the potential elimination of Palestinian territories. Timing matters significantly with International Criminal Court warrant pending against Netanyahu for alleged war crimes and the International Court of Justice declaring Israel occupation illegal. Australia faced complex choices about maintaining relationship with allies whose action increasingly diverge from the international legal frameworks Australia's champion globally. The diplomatic tension are amplifying domestic pressure that SEO Director General Mike Burgess warned about in February, a polarized grievance-rich environment threatening social cohesion. Since October 2023, Australia has witnessed 316% increase in anti-Semitic incident and a 530% surcharge in Islamophobic incident. Mr. Minister Burke consistent application of visa restriction blocking both pro-Hamas speakers and Israel politicians with inflammatory rhetoric reflect a deliberately strategic to prevent importing international conflicts into Australian communities. Yet opposition figures like Andrew Hastie argue this approach damages relationship with democratic allies and create inconsistent standard for different nations. The Jewish community response, represented by Executive Council of Australian Jewry, reveals Norwegian's position while expressing concern about government rhetoric and anti-Semitic handling. Community leaders are explicitly rejected Netanyahu abandonment characterization, emphasizing their ongoing dialogue with Australian authorities. This crisis illuminates broader questions about Australian foreign policy architecture. How does a middle power navigate relationship with allies whose action contradicts stated Australian values? The Albanese government approach suggested prioritizing international law consistency over bilateral convenience, a principle based on stance with potential long-term cost. Opposition leader Susan Lee criticism that the relationship is in a tatters reflects legitimate concern about strategic partnership, particularly given Australia's security dependency and shared intelligence arrangements. Yet, former industry minister Ed Husic counter-argument that the strength means standing by principle rather than accommodating problematic allies, represents an alternative strategic framework. The economic dimension remained largely protected. Scientific collaboration, medical research partnership, and security cooperation continue functioning despite political tension. This suggests institutional resilience beyond leadership level disputes. Australia's position aligned with other Western democracies experiencing similar tension. Canada, France, and the UK have made comparable statements supporting Palestinian recognition while maintaining relationship with Israel. This coordination suggests Australia isn't diplomatically isolated, but part of a broader Western recalibration toward Middle East policy. Netanyahu's public criticism of multiple Western leaders, not exclusively targeted Australia, indicates Israel's frustration with shifting international attitude rather than specific Australian provocation. This pattern suggests the diplomatic crisis reflects broader global realignment rather than unique bilateral failures. Resolutions requires recognizing this isn't simply about reversing recent decision. The underlying tensions, international law compliance, domestic social cohesion, and alliance management represent permanent foreign policy challenges, requiring institutional responses beyond personality-driven diplomacy. The test ahead involves whether both governments can separate bilateral cooperation from political disagreement. Australia's strategic interest requires maintaining practical partnership while preserving policy independence. Israel's interest similarly benefits from avoiding further diplomatic isolation. The broader lesson extends beyond this specific relationship. In an era of increasing international polarization, middle powers like Australia must develop frameworks for managing value-based foreign policy that don't sacrifice a strategic relationship entirely. By the way, today, hundreds of thousands of Australians are expected to join nationwide protests in a powerful show of solidarity with the Palestinian cause, just days after famine was officially declared in Gaza for the first time. Organizers anticipated that Sunday's demonstration will be the largest pro-Palestinian rallies in Australian history, with all major Palestinian advocacy groups uniting for a coordinated day of action across approximately 40 cities and towns. Protesters will call for sanctions against Israel and an end to Australia's arms trade with the country. The demonstrations are supported by more than 250 community organizations and trade unions, including the Victorian Trades Hall Council, Unions, New South Wales, Hunter Workers Union, WA, and the South Coast Labour Council. Tonight's crisis represents more than diplomatic disagreement. It's a stress test of Australia's capacity to balance principle with pragmatism in complex international relationships. The resolution will likely define Australia's Middle East engagement for years to come, with implications extending far beyond bilateral ties to fundamental questions about how democracies navigate an increasingly fractured global order. The relationship can recover, but it requires both sides recognizing that the strong partnership sometimes demand honest disagreement rather than unconditional support. Hi, this is Miko Santos, and this is Inside OSPO.